difference, it was uniqueness, similar, one of a kind, extraordinary, and life experiences shaped by one person with civil rights, being in counseling themselves, Al-Anon, death of loved ones, traveling, work, raised up in diversity, moved in another area, and that was challenging. And the one about teaching, is that the third one? Like getting the student out at the front desk, so they get to know the clientele better and feel more comfortable with them. One of the supervisors said they just say, stop, we're gonna have a teachable moment, and just explain things to them. Maybe because we're always signing their journals, maybe, mandate they have a journal and that they can journal questions that they have when they're out in the community without us, and then bring back those questions to us when they meet with us. To go beyond fear, just really know you got to get out there, and you're not going to be perfect at it. And you want to know the question?
No.
No. Okay.
When we spoke about difference, it turned into a conversation about change and embrace and not to embrace and using resistance in society. In terms of students and how to teach, we talked about the same things, exposure, preventative research, educate themselves, good modeling, encouraging self-awareness and to explore, biases and values, and beliefs and all those things.
Okay. Great. So in general, I hope you guys made some connections between all the things we talked about. And when you went from table to table, you heard some similar things and different things. Yes? And I hope it helped you continue your thinking about those three questions in particular as you moved around. So now we're going to get some questions. So who wants to share their question first? I have a question too. I did it on my own. So who wants to go first? Go.
What shapes your motivation to pursue social work as a profession?
Good question. Yeah, that's got some depth to it. So read it one more time.
What shapes your motivation to pursue social work as a profession?
Okay.
We had, what are you going to do with this experience?
Oh, I like that one. That's very open-ended. So in other words, field, right? The field experience. Read it one more time.
What are you going to do with this experience?
You kept it real simple. We said, who are you?
Oh, that's not simple. That's an existential question. Oh, that poor student would be like, oh. Great question. That was really good. Good job.
What I tweaked for how can you use your experience to create change?
Oh, I like that one too. Read it one more time.
How can you use your experience to create change?
You guys are an interesting group. Can I just say, because you really approached all the questions from a different perspective, and I don't know if it was your influence as the person that stayed, but you were the more macro group. I don't know if everyone else picked up on that. Okay.
What is your expectation of the field learning experience?
Oh, okay. So they're all connected a little bit, right? The macro, the personal kind of thing. What are you going to do, right? Personal responsibility. Okay.
And ours was homework. Bring back the written answer next week.
Next week? Oh man, you guys are tough. Okay, here's my question. My question is, how will your standpoint map out your journey? Ooh, that's a good question. I like to write questions, but I like the idea of a map. And I think the fact too that we talked about our standpoint, which is what shapes us as we become professionals and personal life experiences, but how does that map out what we do? And it really does. I mean, all the questions that were asked today, I think, in the discussion and in this activity, really point to how we're shaped and what we do with that in terms of working with students. So perhaps you can send out all the 5 questions, Evie, to everyone on the listserv, because they were all really good. And I think that would be helpful to use in supervision to ask the student. You all's in your existential question. I don't know if you'll ever answer that. But it was great. It was really, really good. The last thing I will say, as you all continue your efforts with students, which I know you will, is to really, I think question number 3 was really telling in that you all don't always see yourselves as teachers. Yes? You don't. You see yourself as professionals, as a coach, which is fine, as a mentor, as an encourager, but there are times through that journey where you've got to teach, all right? So just own that. Don't be afraid of that. Use experiences like this to sharpen your skills. You all make some connections with each other through just these discussions, where perhaps there's someone in here that's really good at something or had a really great perspective that you really liked. Reach out to that person when you have a student that you're really struggling with. Teach that student. It's important to encourage, to mentor, to coach, but sometimes you got to be that teacher as well. And that's what they need sometimes, is some structure, some real specific guidance and strategies, especially around competency 4, which is really a tough one. All right? I hope you all learned 1 or 2 things and thought about some things that were helpful to you personally and professionally. So put on your teaching hats, embrace that role. You're here because you're good at what you do and you're valued. And go forth and figure out who you are on your journey with the map. So thank you. Abby, do you want to get a student, grad student here? Yes, could she write those questions maybe?
Did you work?
Also, we'd like you to do the evaluation of the ethics portion. There's a small sheet in your papers for feedback. Yeah, and we're going to come back together and have a little bit more before the training is over. Just a little bit.
Be my buddy.
I've been pushing her for quite some time, so I'm glad she's doing it. And how do you think
Okay, we want to respect your time. We're going to try to get you out up here a little early. So let's get started so we can finish and get you going. We're so glad that you came today. We hope that you found it helpful. And again, our theme and focus, in addition to ethics, is self-care. I hope that before you leave, you will take the few moments it takes to make some aromatherapy oil for yourself to take home and care for yourself. And there is a handout that was with your papers when you came in. It's called the Self-Care Plan Worksheet. If you can just find that, take a look at that. This is something I'm not going to ask you to fill out while you're here. I want you to take it with you. these are kind of the two main reasons why self-care really isn't optional for social workers. Well, because of compassion fatigue and secondary trauma. I'm sure that there are other professions that have issues like this as well. When I was in graduate school 20 years ago, they just called the results of compassion fatigue or secondary trauma, they just called that poor boundaries. And I'm so proud of our field for moving past that, moving past blaming and shaming us as professionals for experiencing compassion fatigue and secondary trauma. So there's a lot of research out there. It really is so important to see self-care as not optional. Also, to get rid of this idea that self-care is somehow selfish, pampering, or something extra that you're getting. It's about sustaining your ability to have therapeutic relationships and continue your work. So I just would like you to take the sheet. There are on the front different domains in your life, and I would really like you to ask and take an honest assessment. This is just for your benefit of the different areas in your life. How are you taking care of yourself in each of those areas? Are you? And is there a balance? Do you have one area where you take great care of yourself and then other areas that you don't do anything? Recognizing that life is a balance and you are a whole person, and not a superhero, but a human being. So asking yourself that, and also, are you experiencing any of this burnout, compassion fatigue, secondary trauma? If you are experiencing it, that is the first sign to say, I need more self-care. Something's going on. I need more self-care. So if you would kind of look at this in your own time, not now, but and look at what am I currently doing and what might I begin doing in this domain. And there's at the bottom of the first table, there's two things that say other, because each of our lives are so different. There's no way to know what is the most important domains in your life. So write that in. You know what that is. And then at the very bottom, there's also a place to think about negative coping strategies. We see this a lot with clients where they're doing the best they can and they're coping, but there's some negative consequences that they don't really enjoy from whatever that coping strategy is. So often if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can develop negative coping strategies. And so think about for yourself, are there coping strategies that I'm doing that I'd like to do less of? And how might I do less of those? What might I do instead? I'm a firm believer that we don't want to take away somebody's coping skill without helping them replace it with something else. Or we just leave we have someone exiting our office, in more pain. So I'd like you to do that. And on the back, if life has gotten so out of kilter and balance, you can see a list of suggested things of what it would look like to have good physical self-care, good psychological self-care. So there's a list on the back. If you're struggling with what does it mean or what could I do, there's some ideas for you on the back. And also, you could use this in assessing yourself as well. How many of these things am I doing? How many am I not doing? And that should give you an idea, a realistic, honest appraisal of how well you're taking care of yourself. So please, again, before Christy's going to have some announcements, and then before you leave, obviously we have your certificates, and we would like you to have plenty of the oils, and would love for you to go back and make them for yourself. So thank you again for all that you do, and I'm going to have Dr. Christy Wilder come up. And
Thank you. Good training, huh? What I really liked, and I had commented on to her, that was so cool, that was just kind of an organic part that was happening, the support for field instructors. That you were able to make Dr. Virginia. All right, just a couple of things before we let you go. We obviously have had some changes going on in the school of social work that you've been hearing about. We alluded to it briefly in the beginning with field in particular, which will affect you. I have been doing the advanced standing students, so advanced students know this. Evie has done undergrad and foundation. Bless her, she is getting ready to do all of field. So, yes, but those of you who already work with her, you know and you love her. She's wonderful, support her field instructor. So this will be a nice, easy transition for you, maybe not for her. But we're very thankful that she has agreed to take on all of field. Part of the reason for this is that I am transitioning from field into the dean role, and so I kind of decided maybe it was best not to go, as I'm trying to do right now, which is not working out so well. So that's a big change. So also with field, very important piece for you to also know about, we introduced Trisha Foster, who is sitting back here in the back. She is joining our field team. She is going to be Evie's kind of right-hand person. So you will get to know her very well, I think, in the process of field. She'll be helping to coordinate such things as today. You may even see her out at some of our community events. She may be touching in with you, with your agency, how everything's going. We are welcoming her to the fold of the field, and we're very happy that she's agreed to join us. You will find her to be very easy and pleasant and enjoyable to work with. So we're very happy to welcome Trisha to the field. So these are kind of the big changes that affect you a little bit. And I also want to say, we set this up today. We don't usually do this when we have field instructors, but we realize sometimes in the program we have graduate information and things. We don't always do a good job of updating you all. And I got some questions a couple weeks ago on our graduate program from field instructors, and I realized maybe it'd be helpful if they knew a little bit more about our program in terms of how we, that we're hybrid, if you have a family and you're commuting from a distance, that our program really does accommodate some of these needs. So if you have undergrad students who are working with some other schools looking for graduate programs that fit that type of need, they're trying to balance a lot of life that's happening, that our program does that really well. And it's good to know that there is some classroom interaction, but a lot of it is also online. And even though we're at a private university, this is kind of a big thing, our rates are pretty much the same as public universities. We take off all the extra fees that undergrads typically have to pay in a setting like a private university to keep those prices low for graduate students. So that's kind of a surprise to a lot of our film instructors, and I've had some questions come up recently, so I thought, well, that might be helpful just to have that information available here. There's some packets if you want to take it. If you think there's undergrad students that could benefit from that, feel free. If not, don't. I do want to point out, Valerie mentioned maps, which I thought was very appropriate. If you haven't looked at this map over here, it's pretty amazing. We're kind of proud of it because one of our graduate students, she is from Romania, actually, and she is very gifted at quilling, which is the art of paper. She's done here. She can do just about anything you ask her to do. And so she helped to teach a couple of other of our students, and together they collectively designed this map to represent where all social work is done. And we thought it was so beautiful, we just brought it because they're talented. So take a chance to look at what they have set up for us. So, and I think other than that, just be sure you don't leave here without your CEUs, because we know that's a big part of why you're here. We've got plenty of food and more coffee if you need to take some to finish out the rest of your Friday. And I believe you already did your evaluation pieces, or that was brought to your attention, so be sure to do that. And most of all, take at least a minute to do self-care before you walk out the door. I know it's tempting to rush out, but a big part of what we started and when we end with is that you take time to do this. Because the fact that you're a field instructor lets us know you're adding extra things to your plate, and I'm sure this isn't the only thing that you're adding to what you already do. And we so appreciate you. That's what we want you to hear loud and clear. We really do. We know we could not do this without you. And Valerie said, you all may not think of yourselves as teachers, but you are. Those students cling to what you say far more than what we say. And we know that. And so we value you and we partner with that and we treasure you because you're impacting their lives and their education. So thank you and continue to partner with us. Let us know if there's anything that we can do to continue to support you in this role. And you're done. Once you come here, unless Evan has something.
Attached to your CD, you will currently attached to a student, you have a card. Someone said sometimes a card. I think each one of our students have written a little card of appreciation to share their gratitude.